Hello guys, so welcome back to Blazing Football. We are going to do the Arsenal season preview for season 2019 to 2020. So since Arsenal season has finally come to an end after the FA Cup, so we are here to do the season review. So before we start the review for 2019 to 2020, the so-called signings, the excited signings we did this season. So I'll just go through the signings we actually did and we can just have a chat about it. So the biggest signing in Arsenal's record history, which was Nicolas Pepe, we did for 72 million, and William Saliba, which was 30 million, we loaned him back to Saint Etienne, and then Kieran Tierney, Celtic, and David Luiz, and Pablo Mari, Gabriel Martinelli, Cedric Soares, and Danny Ceballos. I'll start with Rajat. What do you think about the signings? Were you really excited after hearing all this?
Honestly, it started off with a little bit of a disappointment because I think David Ornstein initially came out and said Arsenal don't have more than 50 million to spend. And that was actually a disappointing, but it was something that I was used to as an Arsenal fan because Stan Kroenke has never really made or shown any real intent to put in his own money into the football club. But I remember when I was on my way to a particular meeting, and that's when it sort of popped in that, Nicolas Pepe has been signed on and it's confirmed and it's a record deal of around 72 million that we will be actually initiating. I was very excited. And with Danny Ceballos choosing Arsenal over Tottenham, that was also like a cherry on the icing for me. And I felt personally that it was the best window in a really long time to come because we signed a winger, we signed a central midfielder, and we actually showed some intent to back a new manager, then a centre back, and David Luiz, even with the experience that he brings, there is an error that always comes with him, and that was sort of a little disappointing. But Kieran Tierney at the end of it was also a really good, addition to the defense. So all in all, I felt I was very content with the window, although some of it could have, we could have signed another centre back as well.
Rahul, what do you think? You think this signings which we made was enough to finish in top 4 or compete for top 4 at least?
I thought we would compete for top 4 as usual because the last time Unai Emery managed, we finished, I think, 1 point behind Tottenham in 5th place. So I genuinely thought that we would compete for top 4. And what we all fans expected was to sign a very good centre back because I thought that's the area where we were lacking. And even though we bought William Saliba, we loaned him back and instead we got David Luiz. As Rajat always said, with David Luiz, even though experience comes, error also comes. So I genuinely thought that we could have signed another centre back who was, experienced and proven to be one of the best, like Dayot Upamecano, for example. So even after the transfer window, I was happy with the attacking options we had, but I always was concerned about the defense. So it was a mixed feeling after the transfer window ended. But overall, it was quite satisfactory.
Okay, so Vigneshwar, I want to ask you a different question. The signings, but what signings do you think Arsenal should have made, which should have made a difference, do you think, for the season?
Honestly, I think, starting the season, we were in and around the top 3, top 4 for in the first 7-8 matches. We pulled off a good victory against. Burnley was there, and then Aston Villa coming back winning 3-2. I thought we were on the right track, and Ceballos was clicking. Luiz was Luiz, but overall we looked a balanced side. So I honestly think if it was not for Emery, not for the players responding to Emery, and I think even after Mikel came in, if he had the prolonged 4-month, 5-month period with him, we could have genuinely finished in the top 4. Even after the restart, we were a shoo-in for top 4. Right? We got in only 16 out of the 30 points that were available, but 25 points, 24 points would have got us through to the top 4 in hindsight. So I think the signings were there, but you can sign even Messi if you want, but if they're not going to play for you, then it doesn't really matter. So maybe a centre back, but otherwise no.
Yeah, so Sowmiya, I just want you to tell about what do you think about David Luiz? Do you think for Koscielny that was a good replacement, or we were just forced to get him? Definitely, we were forced to get him. But what do you think about the signing?
See, basically, what I feel is like after whatever drama which happened, like basically the unrevealing of shirt and everything, we were in a bitter position with regards to our defense. And then like loaning out Saliba, who was considered to be a very good prospect, didn't help matters either. But at the same time, considering David Luiz, as everyone has a common opinion about him, I thought maybe it wasn't a wise move. But considering our situation, like going to the initial phase where we were told we had a budget of 45 million, all these transfers were like, oh, amazing. So like with all those which was happening at the club at that point of time, it was a short term fix. Like even as it remains right now, except a few good performances, like David Luiz wasn't performing to the extent that Arsenal and all the fans would have hoped to. So overall, as far as David Luiz is concerned, like he might be a leader under whom all these like young centre backs can learn a lot through his experience. But then in the longer run, I don't think David Luiz is the perfect signing for Arsenal in any way.
So, like according to me, I like definitely I was like quite excited, to be honest. Like when they said this was the budget and they signed the players like Nicolas Pepe, I was definitely excited. To like definitely I thought even though our defense is quite weak, I thought we'll outscore other teams, but definitely that was not the case. Our playing style was not that with Emery, so we kind of lagged in that way. So I'll just move on to the fixtures, like important fixtures during this season. So like all of you know that Newcastle, we won the first game 1-0, and the second game we won against Burnley 2-1, and that was after like 20 years or something. We are winning the first two fixtures, and that was
Yeah.
everyone were like, oh, that's a record, first two fixtures Arsenal have won, we are in the right track and all that. And then the downfall started, I guess, the next match against Liverpool and Tottenham. We just got 1 point. So I think after that, like an important fixture to be noted was Watford versus Arsenal, where Watford had around like 30 chances created against Arsenal.
Shots.
So like I just want to like you guys to share your views on that. So I'll just start with Rahul. What do you think about it?
Was one of the most disappointing defensive performances of all time. You know, we genuinely tried so much to play out from the back, which backfired us in every possible way. And I should have, told this afterwards, but that's what I was able to identify after Mikel Arteta came in. Because before Mikel Arteta came in, if you guys remember the goal we conceded against Watford while playing out from the back, I think Bernd Leno tried to pass it to Socrates. A Watford player intercepted and scored. And after Mikel Arteta came in, the difference that I could be able to identify was the goal against Manchester City. We were trying to play out from the back. Manchester City are considered to be even more successful in pressing than Watford. We successfully bet Manchester City's press, and we scored ultimately. So that was, one of the changes that we were able to identify. But as far as the Watford game is concerned, everything backfired, and I think only because of Aubameyang's individual brilliance, we were able to draw the game. I think he scored a brace. I think the match ultimately ended up 2-2, if I'm not wrong.
2-2 draw.
Yeah, 2-2
So
draw.
that showed that we lack in so many areas. That showed that we are a team which should be able to identify another strategy rather than playing out from the back. So that's where I think all the problems started.
Okay, Rajat, what do you think?
I think the downfall or the running out of patience that Arsenal fans had with Unai Emery began with the Watford game. Because since then, people were sort of still divided about how he must be given some time and how, it's a process that needs, some time to be taken. But playing out from the back was a very, it was a compulsion under Emery. And he was also sort of forcing it upon a keeper previous season. If you look at it with Petr Cech, who was very nervy with his legs. So it all comes down to how exactly you can communicate with your players exactly what you want. With Unai Emery, even though I personally feel he's still a extremely tactical and a brilliant footballing mind. But if you're not able to communicate to your players what exactly you want, they will also be confused themselves, and that confusion would sort of lead to like a nervous, and that nervousness was very apparent in the Watford game with a great, not exactly a great defender, but a very confident defender like Socrates himself being nervy on the legs and committing a unforced error. You could see that the communication gaps were leading to loopholes in the entire team, and that's where the downfall for Emery actually began. And once you end up losing the dressing room, nothing can really happen. You could be Pep Guardiola, but if you end up losing the dressing room, it's finished. So yeah.
So I'll just move on to the next important match, historic match to be exact, which was Arsenal versus Crystal Palace, which finished 2-2, and which had Granit Xhaka telling the F word to the fans. So I'll just ask Sowmiya, what do you think about that?
See, basically, when you play at a club with the stature of Arsenal, I think it is a very important thing to have a proper communication with the fans. And like when you play for the shirt, you need to be in a certain way. Like, see, people can have bust ups and people can lose their temper, but doing that when you wear the Arsenal shirt is unforgivable as a player. And like you lose the fans immediately. And I don't think like people who are really passionate about in the dressing room would be supporting you by anyway. And like moving to Granit Xhaka in particular, we have seen a long list of infamous bust-ups. He tends to lose his temper a lot, but that was a point in which, like, to be honest, we weren't performing well. And at the same time, when something like this happens, it is definitely bound to like reflect on the moral. If you see the form in which Arsenal like went through, like in the revolving fixtures, it wasn't a great time. And then like I don't have to tell you what happened in the later stages of Europa League games, like which basically we like there were things of struggling with regards to various smaller teams. So basically, I feel that like incidents like these happen, but not when you cuss at your fans and like when you treat the jersey improperly. So basically, and then we know what happened now. Zaka has like come out with a resurgence of form, and like I haven't seen a lot of inspiring comebacks in recent times. Like Zaka has done it. Like people who come out from injuries, they do it, but then like when the entire club hierarchy and the fans are against you when you are left out of the teams, I don't think such a strong comeback like can be seen a lot of times. We know what is happening with Ozil and Gundausi, but we don't see that happening with Zaka. Like the moment he lost the fans, I don't think a lot of people still hold it against him at this point. Like after a lot of match winning and inspiring performances, so I think that played a very crucial part in our season, to be honest.
Okay,
But
so
I would like to add to one of it, if you don't mind pondering on it.
okay.
Yeah.
But the thing about Granit Xhaka, see, the fan base has always been very divided about whether he's quality or whether he's not. But in his defense, although when you wear this shirt, sometimes it might be a little too heavy. The badge might be too heavy for certain people, and for some people it might not be. But what he claimed was that there were death threats issued against his wife and his daughter and his newborn daughter. And that is something which we as fans sometimes tend to overlook, that footballers are human beings at themselves. They too have like a conscience, they too are afraid for their family and whatnot. And when something like that is happening, you cannot really expect somebody to be calm all the time. Yes, he shouldn't have done it, more so not as a player but as a club captain. Back then he threw the armband, he cussed the fans on his way out and whatnot. But I think it was a culmination of everything that had happened over the last 3 years, because yes, we have seen so many of his posts, his comments have been muted. So you can actually imagine the amount of verbal abuse that he's been getting. And he claimed to get death threats for his daughter. And that's not something you want as an individual. So keeping that in mind, I think it was sort of like a culmination of two things that happened. But I'm very happy about how he's resurged as a player. I'm very happy that he's proved all of us wrong.
Okay, so Vigneshwar, I want to ask you, like, what was your first reaction when you saw that during the match when he just walked out that way, removing his shirt?
I was like, what the fuck? I mean, that was the natural reaction because we were not doing well in the game. And I mean, honestly, if I was in the stadium, I would be booing. I'm not gonna hide from it because, like Rajat mentioned, it's a culmination of a lot of things, and not just of Xhaka's attitude, but over game, we've been receiving 20 shots a game. We've been receiving 2 goals a game. We were not. So it's the anger, and we have to let it out somewhere. And Xhaka had a poor performance, and when he came, and he wasn't the one that was, he was not gonna clap and he was not gonna smile. So the people booed, and I'm not gonna lie, if I was there, I would have probably booed. But again, like Rajat said, I think it's too much to abuse a person. He's not doing well. He's not doing well. Call him out, but you cannot go beyond that and abuse his family. You cannot go beyond that and abuse his. It's just too much, and it's very unfortunate what happened with him back then. But I'm very glad that he's turned it around. I apologize. I regret whatever I had posted about him, but I'm very glad he's turned it around. And I think most of it is down to what Mikel has done with him. If it's not like Xhaka is the same player. Xhaka is committing less mistakes now. He's not giving that many penalties, that many free kicks in and around the box. He's not losing possession that often. And it's just the cause and effect relationship of his performance improving and our reaction improving. And that, I think, a lot of credit has to go to Mikel. So,
yeah, eventually I thought after that match he's not going to wear the Arsenal shirt again. But somehow he turned it around. And even in the interview, he told that he was very close to leaving the club. He was very close. But,
he mentioned that. In fact, Mikel Arteta had said Pep and himself had pondered about signing Xhaka for Manchester City. So evidently they rated him as a player. So I mean, I can imagine how Xhaka would clearly fit into the Manchester City team. Now they're slightly confused with having Rodri there. Rodri is a very defensive-minded player. He does not have the passing range like Xhaka has. So he would have been a lot of help to the Manchester City team. So yeah, I mean, if it works out well, I mean, he has a couple of years left with him in his prime. Xhaka, I think he will be starting for this season and the next season, hopefully, if he's here. So I hope it only goes upwards from now
on. Okay, so the next match I'm going to talk is a very important fixture in Arsenal because Unai Emery was sacked after this game, which was Arsenal versus Frankfurt. Frankfurt won in Emirates Stadium for 2-1. So I just want to ask, I'll ask Rajat, do you think this fixture was too late to sack it?
Yes, I think it was because if Mikel Arteta was given a little more time, I think if it started somewhere in December or somewhere in November, like at least right after the Leicester loss, where the club still told us that they had a faith in the manager, maybe we could have sort of turned it around. And as Sowmiya mentioned, we weren't really far away from the top four. It's just a matter of 9 points. So we weren't that far away. Maybe like 3 or 4 games here and there, we could have turned it around and probably pressurized for the top four. So it was a tad bit late because it was evident that he had lost the dressing room, he had lost the fans themselves, and it was probably only Rahul Senelli who was backing him from the hierarchy. So there comes a point where you have to take a courageous decision of sacking and admitting you made a mistake and sacking the manager. And if he had been given a little more time, then it would have been far too disastrous. So it came a little late.
Okay, so Rahul, the question I'm going to ask you is different. When do you think was the right match to sack him rather than after sacking him after the Frankfurt game?
Rajat told, I think Unai Emery should have sacked after the Leicester game because now when I think about it, I think the management was hesitant to sack him because of the financial issues that we could have faced if we had sacked Unai Emery earlier. So if you ask me about the right time, I think the Leicester match was a perfect example of why he shouldn't stay at the club longer. Because, I will accept the fact that Leicester ripped us apart at the King Power Stadium, and the atmosphere. And another thing was that even Leicester fans were singing that Unai Emery will be sacked in the morning. Okay. So that was the nail in the coffin, according to me. And if we had sacked him earlier, I think Mikel Arteta would have got a lot of time in terms of improving his squad in a more earlier manner. So, I think the Leicester match was to be, considered as his last game. But good for him, he got 2 more matches, and thank God we lost the match to Frankfurt. So it ultimately was a positive move, in my opinion, because I'm still very, very happy about what Mikel Arteta has achieved in such a short span of time. You can't expect a manager to take over half in the middle and still won a trophy, just after managing for half a season. So I'm very, very glad that it all ended in a positive way. But as far as your question is concerned, the Leicester match should have been his last one.
Like actually, according to me, this match was the match where all Arsenal fans wanted Arsenal to lose actually, because only if we lose,
Yeah.
like Emery will be sacked, and everyone wanted like Arsenal to lose badly. And even in Twitter, when Kamada's birthdays actually recently came, every Arsenal fan wished him thank you so
Every
much for
Arsenal
scoring.
fans wished him.
So yeah, Soumya, I'll ask you a question. Like many Arsenal
Yeah.
fans wanted Emery to be sacked after the Baku game. So do you think that was too early, or that was right actually? Like some people felt that way.
See, basically, like I wouldn't agree with all of them here. Like most of them have their opinion that Emery should be sacked after the Leicester game, but like considering the fact that a fixture or two before or after it didn't make sense because of the way that like most of the season, the previous one and the current one being taken together, Emery had given us like a false hope. Like basically the 22 match unbeaten run. It wasn't a big achievement when we like what do you call when we try to pick on the other clubs for going on a draw filled unbeaten run. Like basically our situation is similar to Manchester United, but then like last season after the Baku game, if Emery has been sacked, it would have been really unfair on him, like even on the
Yeah.
club, because like we would be a club which would be sacking managers before a year, which is what a lot of other clubs do. Like Arsenal are known to build a proper structure, and like basically last season was promising in a way. Like basically, if you look into the results of last season, we were one of the few teams to beat Napoli and Valencia at their home. Like other than Barcelona bet them. Other than that, in Estella, I think we were the only team to beat them. Like so, basically, till the final, we were given a strongly difficult draw. Like compared to Chelsea, had been facing minors everywhere, but we were facing Napoli, which played really well against Liverpool last season, Liverpool and PSG. And similarly with regards to Valencia, who had a strong domestic form. But I think basically Baku game would have been too early, and Leicester game I think wouldn't have made a big difference, because like considering our European, like most of the matches, in case we didn't have Nicola Pepe's amazing effort, we would have lost the other game as well. So overall, I don't think this particular game would have made a big difference.
Okay, so I'll move on to the next game, which is Norwich versus Arsenal, which was a 2-2, which was the first game for Freddie Ljungberg. So I want to ask you, Vigneshwar, what were your initial thoughts on Freddie Ljungberg?
I don't know. I mean, it's. I was hoping that you have the spring reaction, right? So when you're released from the shackles of a manager, I thought they would put in a good performance, but no, it was the same. And Bernd Leno had to save us out in Norwich.
Exactly.
I remember he making two outstanding saves there in Norwich. So yeah, I was hoping. I mean, I don't know enough about Freddie to comment on him. All we've seen him is for 3 games, I think, or 4 games. So look, I was hoping that the spring reaction would obviously be there, like Everton had with Duncan Ferguson coming in. They kept winning some 3-4 games, and I thought for Mikel Arteta to go against Duncan Ferguson in the first game was pretty risky. And 0-0 there was actually a good result. But I was hoping we would have a similar reaction, just win a couple on the trot, and But I mean, Freddie didn't do enough to put him in the put his name in the hat for consideration as permanent Arsenal manager. So, but I'm glad he's around. So, yeah,
Okay, so Rajat,
not enough.
when Freddie Ljungberg came in as the Arsenal manager, so if he had performed well, would you have made him as the manager for Arsenal?
See, I came from a very different school of thought about who should be managing Arsenal. Even before Mikel Arteta was signed, I'm not going to lie and tell that I was going to back him and I expected him to do great things like he did this season. I was very apprehensive about, signing Mikel Arteta himself, because I always believed that we needed experience. A club of the structure of Arsenal always needed some amount of managerial experience to take on the reins of someone who's managed the club for around 22 years. So Freddie was also not really convincing for me. And when we drew 2-2 versus Norwich, it wasn't really a much of a surprise for me, because it's not something that you wake up the next day and suddenly you're different players. You obviously need a system to be implemented before things can turn around. And it should be there's no knee-jerk reaction. So Freddie Ljungberg for me was always someone that should have been an interim manager before somebody would actually have stepped in. Because if you look at it, he also himself doesn't have a lot of experience or hasn't learned from anybody like Mikel Arteta has. At least with Arteta, he learned from one of the finest systems of football recently, in recent years at least. So Freddie Ljungberg wasn't really the one I would consider as a full-time manager, but I feel that he's a great presence in the supporting staff of Mikel Arteta, because the young players, as I mentioned, if you look at Bukayo Saka, you look at Eddie Nketiah, and a couple of other under 21 players that have sort of been integrated into the first team, they always say that Freddie Ljungberg has been the reason why we have so much of confidence getting into the first team. So we always need somebody like that, and especially of a legendary status like Freddie, to sort of provide the young players with the sort of intent and the sort of confidence that they would need to play with the likes of Aubameyang, Lacazette, etc. So, because these are like big names coming from an under 21 system, if you find yourself playing with Aubameyang, you're obviously going to be very nervous. So, somebody like Freddie will sort of help in bridging that gap from the under 21 team to the first team. That's what I think about Freddie so far.
What I actually felt was Freddie Ljungberg was the manager for 6 games for Arsenal. I think that was too long to find a full-time manager, according to me. Because if they
exactly.
it was too long.
Yeah,
because if they had got someone in sooner, maybe the results which we had like a draw and loss against Man City. Man City was fine anyway. The loss against Brighton and all. Brighton, they made a double also against us this season. So that could have changed something. So I felt it was too late to actually get someone as a full-time manager for Arsenal. So moving on to the full-time manager, I'm going to the next picture, which is Arsenal versus Man City, where Arsenal lost 3-0, and the next day we got Mikel Arteta. We were told Mikel Arteta is the next manager for Arsenal. So I'll ask
that was
Sowmiya.
A win for us.
Yeah. So I'll ask Sowmiya, what were your initial thoughts when you heard Mikel Arteta is going to be the next manager for Arsenal?
See, like before Mikel Arteta, the thing that I had in my mind was that basically Freddie would continue to be the interim manager until the end of the season, and the next season is when we would be bringing in a big name. Like basically, to be honest, I have never been a fan of Mikel before he came in because of the bitter history of our ex-Arsenal players. Basically, Thierry Henry was considered to be a really good footballing man, but we saw what happened with him in France. Like basically that was going on in my mind, and Patrick Vieira wasn't a amazing manager who brought in instant results. So basically when Mikel was appointed, I was skeptical. Now I take back my word. Basically, like whatever he has achieved in the
100%.
So basically,
exactly.
Yeah. So basically, what I feel is at the short time which he's been given, like without the freedom he would have been given if he was at any other big club, basically bringing in players and unlimited money. Mikel Arteta has been doing wonderfully with whatever resources he has at his disposal, and I expect it to be better at least. But then now Mikel Arteta's performance has made me consider not thinking of ex-Arsenal players to be a sign of like red flag or something, because like this is something new, like an ex-player coming back and doing well. So I think it's a very welcome move, and I am totally happy with whatever has transpired from them.
So Rahul, like when you heard after the game, like Vinay Venkatesham and Rahul Salani are all like they were pictured in the taxi near Arteta's house, and he's going to sign for Arsenal. What were your thoughts?
As Soumya told, I was quite skeptical because, I mean, if we had managed any other club before, we could have at least expected what style of play we were going to play and the way in which we were going to present ourselves and the identity of Mikel Arteta. It was very, very difficult for us to think about that because there were no identity. He doesn't have a proven track record before joining Arsenal. But as for me, I was quite positive about it because I genuinely thought that we had nothing much to lose. You know, we cannot obviously get a downgrade than how Emery was at Arsenal. But I was very, very, in a dilemma whether Mikel would produce results or not. But in general, what I had thought was Mikel Arteta, obviously, when if you guys had watched the Amazon Prime
A document,
All
All
or
or Nothing
nothing.
all or nothing.
about Manchester City, they genuinely showed what Mikel Arteta's role was at Arsenal. He was proven to be very, very tactically strong. He had a good presence of mind, and he was considered to be a very, very smart manager. So in those aspects, I was very, very happy where he could bring in a sense of stability into the club. But only after seeing him manage for the first 3 to 4 games, especially after the game against Man United, I was pretty sure that we made the right choice.
Okay,
And I
I'll
think
move.
even if
Okay, continue.
Yeah, and I think even if you look at the games that we lost right before the lockdown, at least, you look at the game versus Chelsea, you look at the game versus, I think it was Olympiacos that we had a horrible loss with that miss from Aubameyang. It was mostly down to how the players bottled it. Because if you look at the first 20-25 minutes, we created far many chances than we had under Emery. But the thing with Emery was when we lost horribly. But when it came to Arteta, at least when we were losing, we played well and we lost. So you could obviously see that there were some signs. So that was like a positive sign, at least before the lockdown, and with everything that the COVID-19 pandemic and whatnot.
Yeah, like you told, I was going to ask you about the Arsenal versus Chelsea, which was the first big game for Arsenal, where Arsenal lost 2-1 at Emirates. But where, like you told, Arsenal played really well. But
Very well.
they played very well. They had the control and the position. But towards the end of the game, like I felt Arsenal lost the stamina to like press like how they did in the first half. That's where they lagged, and ultimately the 2 goals were too hurting actually, because we were the more likely to win that game, and it
Dominating
was
side.
dominating, and it was quite disappointing that we lost that game. So Vigneshwar, I want to ask you, like the first big game Arsenal won against Arteta was Arsenal versus Man United, where we won 2-0. What were your thoughts on that game?
I was just over the moon when Pepe scored. I mean, the slander that he'd received from Manchester
Exactly.
United fans was something else.
That was
So he scored, and the celebration was. I wouldn't have minded, losing the game also, just because Pepe scoring was
Pepe
enough.
scoring was.
Yeah, but so the thing is with Mikel Arteta initially, if you recall, for the first 8-10 games, or even until the lockdown, we had what we call the second half syndrome. So until the 60th 75 minutes, we were very good, but we conceded all of our goals after the 75th minute. But I don't see that now. I think the players, I mean, maybe it's down to them improving the fitness levels, or maybe the more balance now. But yeah, now it's completely changed. So that's signs of improvement with respect to fitness levels and consistency of pressing throughout the game. And yeah, Manchester United was something else that win
Yeah,
against.
I would like to add on to that. I think Ozil ran around 11.5 kilometers
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
in the game.
wow.
I'm, s-
that's
I
he was
don't know
almost
whether it's
walking
mile. I don't know whether it was calculated in miles or kilometers, but it was supposed to be one of his best performances when it comes to him running throughout the pitch. So that was one of the positive signs of the game, in my opinion.
Okay, Rajat, I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on the Arsenal Chelsea versus Arsenal, which ended 2-2, and we had a red card in the beginning, and Arsenal fans consider it as a win. Actually, it is not a draw because with 10 men we won it
so
2-2.
so if I have to look at it, if I have to add to the Chelsea game, one person that has really made a resurgence after Granit Xhaka is Mustafi. So Mustafi is somebody that has been slandered, that has been the butt of all the jokes, and we've had to hear no end about how terrible he is as a defender. It must be remembered that he's a World Cup winning player, and you don't really, you're not really included in a World Cup squad if you're not really good. So it was all down to his confidence and how he had lost it under Emery, and he sort of gained it under Arteta. If you look at the game, the first mistake that sort of led to Jorginho scoring the penalty was because of a mistake with Mustafi himself. But after that mistake, the way he carried himself and the way he sort of integrated with a makeshift centre back with Granit Xhaka was unbelievable. I think that's probably one of the best centre back performances I've seen. And that too, it was in a game where he himself conceded, a horrible mistake. And that run by Gabriel Martinelli was just sublime. I mean, you can see that this kid has something great about him. All he needs is a little bit of less hype than we are doing right now, because currently I see comparisons being drawn with him and Messi, and that's not really something you need for a player that's like 19 years old. And at the same time, he needs the support of the manager as well, because this kid has the same work rate that we had with Alexis Sanchez. You know, he's constantly running, he's constantly on both sides of the wing, and he's trying to win the ball. So you could see that. And at the same time, it was a victory for me, because with 10 men Arsenal under Emery, I would never have imagined we could have pulled that off. But we actually got a draw. And Bellerin always likes scoring against Chelsea. So it wasn't really much of a surprise for me. But yeah, I could count it as a victory, because with 10 men at a place where we have lost 6-0 in the past, it's like something of a very big improvement. So I think it was a victory in the end.
Also, there were many memes going on in the Twitter right now saying that William started assisting Arsenal even before joining Arsenal because it was his corner, which ultimately
It was the pre-assist that led to Mustafi.
yeah, it led to the goal. So yeah, even that Bellerin goal, the second goal was pretty amazing according to me with his left leg. I didn't quite expect it from him. And,
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that was down to Kepa being a terrible keeper.
Yeah, that is also true. So I'll go on to the next game. I'll ask you, Sowmiya, what do you think about the match Arsenal versus Olympiacos, where Arsenal were out of Europa League?
Oh God.
Okay, like basically, like I have been wanting to talk about this match in this podcast actually, and thank you for the question. See, like if we look into Olympiacos, I make it a point to watch bigger teams play in Champions League. So if we look at the performance of Olympiacos, they were playing really well in their group stages. Like basically, they drew versus Tottenham, and then like that, it was a close match against Bayern Munich. Like we saw how they were running riot against Barcelona. Like I think it is commendable enough, and Olympiacos I feel is one of the most underrated teams in Europe. Like basically all of us think that all the leagues outside the top 7 8 countries aren't really good, but like there are some teams, basically one or two teams in Russia, and then we have a team in Greece. So there are some teams which we have to watch out for. Like I feel Olympiacos is really underrated, and I think it was a meltdown. Basically, all the good games that they had played was in Greece. But then, like coming out to London, and I thought maybe Aubameyang will be scoring in the last shot, but it was very unfortunate he had missed. But moving on to Aubameyang as well, I think we should be looking into the fact that he has missed a lot of important chances. Like basically, if we had scored the penalty, the previous season would have gone into the Champions League and this one as well. So basically, that was a one game which Arsenal was totally off color, and Olympiacos, they were defensively organized well. Like basically, if we look into the lot of smaller teams, which I think we'll be coming back to later, we didn't have a playmaker who will break through defenses. We were doing it previously, and even in case of this season after the lockdown, we were dropping a lot of points to smaller teams. So basically, I feel that we'll have to move forward from the Olympiacos game, which I feel is rather a one-off game amidst a resurgent season for us. So that is what I think about the Olympiacos game.
So, Rahul, what do you think went wrong in the Olympiacos game?
See, one thing that I always thought of is that in terms of tactical play, uh, what I what I identified was there was no particular partnership that we expected from Ozil and Nicolas Pepe, because throughout the game, Nicolas Pepe was dancing throughout the pitch, but he wasn't
Yeah.
able to produce one shot on goal or across for that matter. So even though Nicolas Pepe had a decent enough performance, he wasn't able to contribute us in terms of scoring. And it was very, very unfortunate for Aubameyang to miss the last chance. But we
Exactly.
cannot blame him here, but because he is one of the reasons. Yeah, Aubameyang missing that chance was very, very unfortunate. But it wasn't his fault because he was one of the reasons why Arsenal is not relegated, in my opinion. He
True, true.
saved our ass. He saved our ass so many times. So obviously, and it was also with respect to how we defended in that particular game, because the first goal we considered, I think, was from a corner which Olympiacos scored, and it was again a mistake from David Luiz with respect to the positioning. And the I think the second goal we considered was after Bernd Leno committed an error where he was forced into pressure and he had to concede it for a corner, if I'm not wrong. So there were, as usual, a number of defensive mistakes. But at the end, of course, it was heartbreaking. But yeah, we know the changes that we are supposed to make in order to compete for top four and Europe next season. So yeah, these are all the mistakes that we have to learn at some point of time. So yeah, let's see. So this will make us learn from our mistakes, and we need to uh, learn not to repeat it next season. So that's how we need to move on. Yeah, let's see.
Okay, so Vigneshwar, I want to ask you, like after this, we went to the pandemic break. We had a break and we came back. We played the first match, which was against Manchester City. So we lost 3-0. What were your thoughts on the game?
No, I mean, I was very happy throughout the pandemic because there were a lot of reports on us sending fitness machines and, the players clocking in a lot of. So I was very happy. And then Lacazette released pictures of him, coming back in proper shape, with his six packs and all those things. And then there were comparisons with him and other players from other teams. De Bruyne came in with a tummy. I mean, he is the greatest player. He was the best player anyway. But I'm saying through the lockdown, I was happy that Arteta could, get the, get the play, get to work with the players and all that. But I mean, look, it was Manchester City, and I think, I mean, the league was anyway out of their reach, and it was a miracle for them to would have been a miracle for them to even catch up to Liverpool. But it's Manchester City, and they weren't gonna, go easy on us. And I think we should have lost 5 or 6-0. If you look at the game between with the Manchester City, the 3-0 and the FA Cup semi-finals, I think that's the difference that we should be actually looking at. What Mikel has done with the tactical formations and whatever little he has Luis, he has Mustafi, and he has to work around them. And he lost Leno as well. So the difference between that game and the game against the City in the FA Cup semi-finals probably why I see us going on the upward curve. And I think there's no point pondering on what happened and why we lost the 3-0. It was coming. And Mikel did have time with his players. And like he mentions in most of his interviews, that I like being on the pitch with them. I like shaping their bodies. I like touching them. I like playing. He didn't have any of it. And Manchester City is this well-oiled team. And, they were always going to come up. I didn't have a lot of hopes. Of course, I was hoping that we would win other games. We lost against, I think, who was it, the next
Brighton.
yeah,
Brighton,
against Brighton, I think.
Brighton.
So, I mean,
No, but to add to the City loss, if you don't mind me telling,
Yeah,
if
sure,
you
sure.
noticed, if you've noticed, there is this trend. I think Granit Xhaka has never, since the lockdown. I mean,
Yes,
after the lockdown, we have never lost a game in which Granit Xhaka has played a full 90 minutes. So it
correct.
all comes down to the kind of system that Arteta is trying to implement within the team that we have right now. Because without Xhaka, it's clear that Mikel Arteta's plans are not really working. Guendouzi is clearly not, or was not capable right now of, fitting into the kind of role that Arteta sees in Xhaka. And at the same time, we can't really expect that of Ceballos as well. The ideal midfield pivot partnership is clear. It's Ceballos and Granit Xhaka that Arteta wants to implement. And you can see how we've done well with that partnership in the midfield. Otherwise, we've always ended up being overrun in the midfield with Kevin De Bruyne just walking over us. And with all
Yeah,
due
that
respect
was.
to Man City's victory against us, I think up until the point where Granit Xhaka was injured and Pablo Mari was also injured, we were doing a fairly good job. It was a compact effort from our end, and we weren't really conceding as many unforced errors as we would have. And we managed to keep them controlled. But it was only after that we lost Xhaka that we could actually see that it was completely paradigm shift, and it was Unai Emery's Arsenal all over again with having to face like so many shots within a matter of some time. And then David Luiz produced, the one out of every 5 games where
Classic.
he the horror
Classic
that he
David
did,
Luiz.
the classic David Luiz. 4 games will be good, and the one game will make you question how this man has won everything that is to win in football. So, yeah.
According to me, the game we lost that game when we had the two injuries in the first 20 minutes, because I felt Arteta had some tactical thing related with Granit Xhaka and Pablo Mari. When Pablo Mari was injured, definitely he had no other way but to get David Luiz into the pitch. And to be quite honest, we played the 45 minutes quite well. The first 45 minutes we were somewhat okay moving the ball front and back, but that penalty, because Bernd Leno saved like 2 or 3 shots which were like quite important, and he was helping us stay in the game. And yeah, and ultimately that penalty led to the goal, and we were in the second half we had no other way to come back into the game, so we lost it ultimately. So Rahul, I want you to talk about what do you think about the match Brighton versus Arsenal, where Arsenal lost 2-1.
For the first 80 minutes or so, I thought we were pretty much organized. We were able to move forward, and that's one of the games where we lacked that creative input from, I think from a player like Mesut Ozil. We badly missed a player like Ozil that game, because we had, I think, 2 or 3 shots. I remember Saka's shot hitting the crossbar outside the penalty box, if I'm not wrong. So obviously the Nicolo Pepe goal was his usual self, and it provided a standard for us. But the way in which we considered those 2 goals, again, it was a defensive error from the corner, if I'm not wrong, where Brighton scored their first goal. And of course, it was very, very unfortunate for us to concede in the last second. And that's one of the games where we lacked that midfield genius in Mesut Ozil or Granit Xhaka, because Granit Xhaka didn't play the game, if I remember, and Guendouzi had a horrible game throughout the 90 minutes, and after the 90 minutes he got into trouble which he should have not. So it was a disaster, complete disaster for Matteo Guendouzi. But I think that after the game we started implementing the 3-4-3 system, if I'm not wrong. Yes. I think against the game against Southampton, we faced Southampton the next game, and that's where we had implemented the 3-4-3 for the first time. So that was the only positive aspect as far as I'm concerned. But against Brighton, it was very, very unfortunate for us to lose the way we lost.
Okay, so
fantastic goal by Pepe.
Yeah,
that goal was
that was the exact copy of how he scored against West Ham, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
So Sowmiya, I want to ask you, we lost that game and all that. What do you think about the reaction of Guendouzi to Neil Maupay when he apparently pushed Bernd Leno and he was injured? He caught his neck. What do you think about it?
See, basically, all these things happen at the heat of the moment. We have seen a lot of fights come out, but ultimately I was totally not impressed with the purported attitude of Guendouzi after the match. Basically all those loose talks, which I think is totally unprofessional in nature. When you play for a top club, you're not supposed to go and financially taunt someone from a lower club who is battling for relegation. I think despite Guendouzi being a small kid, I don't think it was acceptable. But then all these things happen at the spur of the moment, and whatever it is, we have seen that this is not a one-off incident, because we have heard that he had a bust up with Arteta in the Dubai training camp during the winter break. So I think his attitude wasn't totally reflective as an Arsenal player. Basically our club is known to have a lot of class around it, and all these unprofessional aspects after the game, you can go and taunt people, but about the wages and all those wasn't really professional in my view.
Okay.
So, and whatever is happening right now, I feel it's really unfortunate for a player. I have considered him to be an emerging talent. He's not even 22, I think.
I mean, there's no doubt about the fact that if things go, if his talent develops the way that we see it developing, he has the potential to go out there and play for the best clubs. I've always said it, and he's always been a winner. If you look at it, he was the one that saved us against Aston Villa, the 3-2 victory.
Exactly.
Handedly went and won us the penalty and whatnot, assisted Aubameyang's equalizer and everything. So he is a player with a lot of potential. And when I say a lot of potential, a lot of potential. But it all comes down to the kind of attitude that you have and whether or not it fits with your club. For example, with Arsenal, as Sowmiya mentioned, we are a club that reflects a lot of class. You don't see things like this happening with our club, where there's a lot of, if I may take the privilege of saying, shithousery in football happening. You don't see that happening with Arsenal. But a player like him will do exceptionally well at a club like, say, the likes of AC Milan, that has Gattuso as their manager, which has a lot of aggressive fighting spirit. Or if I may say, even Atletico Madrid. Atletico Madrid is known for producing talents like this, that is known to rough up games and sort of have a lot of a dogfight kind of an attitude. So it would be a very good fit for him if he goes to, say, an Atletico Madrid, and that is what we're ideally targeting in the transfer window. But it's unfortunate that his time with Arsenal has to end, because I expected great things from the kid.
Okay, so moving on to the next game, Vigneshwar, I'm going to talk about the match Wolves versus Arsenal, which was an Arteta masterclass where he won 2-0. What were your thoughts on the game?
Absolutely. I think you'll have to give a lot of credit to Maitland-Niles. I think after the restart has been exceptional.
Wonderful,
there was a list I saw on Twitter of the number of players he's pocketed. Through Liverpool, through Wolves, and it was very difficult to keep Adama Traore quiet. I mean, you might not see Adama Traore, having a lot of output in terms of goals and assists throughout the season, but he's always there and thereabout in every move of Leicester. And it was very, very. He moved to the other wing. He tried playing through the middle, and it was very nice to see Adama Traore and Wolves being confused as to what their proper game plan is and how to, So it was a proper, masterclass might be a stretch, but yes, it was. I think what Arteta wanted. Some evidence of what he's implementing was visible with Wolves, and but it is sad again that Wolves are a team that we should be dominating and we should be scoring, and we shouldn't be scoring in counter attacks. And we're a team that we should be taking the game to the Wolves rather than sitting back, and it should be a 60-40 rather than a 50-50 or a 40-60. But I think it'll come with time. I think a couple of seasons and we'll be back among the best. So, yeah.
No, even though with all due respect to Wolves, so Wolves are technically not exactly the elite top six, but they are a team that are known to make like big teams struggle. We've seen so many teams that have gone out there and struggled, like City, Liverpool, etc. They might have gotten the wins there, but very few teams have actually gone out to the stadium of Wolves and actually won there. And what we saw that day was actually sort of an evidence of, the good signs to come under Mikel Arteta, the kind of, foundation that we want to build, that was evident from that game. I think it was from the Wolves game that Arsenal fans actually started taking Mikel Arteta really, really seriously. That is where his good run sort of began. And he produced the things that we never really expected him to produce within a matter of 6 months. And if you look at how it was a very good week for us, Saka signed his extension, and then we actually went on to beat Wolves at their home ground, which is a really good, very difficult place to win. And if I may take the privilege of saying, Wolves are like the Stoke City currently of what Stoke used to be earlier. Very difficult to go out there and win. And I think it was a sign of good things to come with Arsenal, unless something else happens.
Okay, so Rahul, moving on to the next game, which is Tottenham versus Arsenal, where Tottenham won 2-1. The North London derby.
One of the things that I identified throughout the season was that against teams like Tottenham or some of the other smaller teams than us, we would lose it by ourselves. It's not like they bet us through their defensive or attacking masterclass. It is our defensive mistakes that always cost us the games which we should have won. Because if you guys identify the game against Leicester, we were down to 10 men. We tried so hard, but yet we couldn't cross the line. Against Tottenham, for that matter, the first goal, the way in which we conceded, I think Kolasinac committed an error, if I'm not wrong.
Exactly, it was Kolasinac.
Yeah, and the second goal, we didn't mark Toby Alderweireld properly, if I'm not wrong. Kieran Tierney was deployed to mark Toby Alderweireld, which was not at all the way which it was supposed to be. So for that matter, I think the way in which we started the game was very, very positive. Lacazette scored a brilliant goal outside the penalty box. So that was the game I think which we should have won, and it also has a lot to um, look at it about the way in which Jose Mourinho played because Tottenham were sitting back, and in terms of how Arteta's team was supposed to play, the opposition is supposed to press us, and we beat every player's pressing, and then we move forward. Tottenham, on the other hand, did not press throughout the game. They were sitting back all the time, and even though Tottenham sat back, we created a number of chances. Aubameyang, I think, hit the crossbar once, and
Yes.
Loris saved them a couple of times. So it was a very, very unfortunate result. But we knew that, against teams like Tottenham and against teams like Aston Villa, which do not press hard yet sit back and wait for us to attack, that's where we need a creative input from a player like, say, Mesut Ozil or Philip Coutinho. So that's what we have to focus more on this transfer window, because against every team we cannot deploy the same formation or the same attacking intent. So that's what I think Arteta would have identified against it, the performance against Tottenham. So yeah, we need to get so many creative players, like, or we need to use Mesut Ozil for next season. I don't know what's going to happen, but the creative area is one where we need to be concerned, and we need to buy players.
Adding
According to
what just like
yeah,
Rahul was mentioning, like if we look back to the North London derby, our defensive performance was really bad. Like basically, Son was toying around Mustafi, and like we could see all the irrelevant tackles which were being done. So basically, usually when we look into the North London derby, we get a sense of assurance. Like in the recent years, a lot of NLDs were being dominated by Arsenal, but this was a match, even though where we dominated a lot, certain defensive mistakes, in my opinion, are the reason we lost. Like from the first goal, which we were leading, the counter attack in which like Son scored, I think we could have done better. But then, like after the Tottenham match, our defense improved considerably well and like eventually led us to our FA Cup. So I think this was a match in which our defensive errors like were lost seen, and after that we had a good run of games, like except
Yeah, very
Watford,
good
of
one.
course.
Yeah.
so yeah, after this, actually about this game, I felt Arsenal were not quite good how they started. They were quite slow and they were quite like here and there, not in their own self game. Like I thought actually the before game Arsenal drew against Leicester 1-1, and which was actually I like it was quite disappointing because we were leading 1-0 and Nketiah got a red card, and I thought in this game they'll bounce back with a victory and because they'll be more motivated, and also taking into account that Tottenham drew against Bournemouth having 0 shots on target. I was like quite sure to be exact saying that we'll win this game. But after the Lacazette goal and the Kolasinac mistake, I felt Kolasinac shouldn't be playing for Arsenal again. He's like,
Yeah,
uh,
surely, surely.
yeah, the back three definitely. I don't think he should be there. If he's only like he plays well only on the left side because he can only pass with his left leg and shoot with his left leg. His right foot is like way out. And so moving on to the next game, which was a very important win for Arsenal and where no one expected Arsenal to win, which was Arsenal versus
Man
Liverpool.
City.
So yeah, Rajat, what do you think about that game?
It is actually I mean, it was like a combination of two things. I think Liverpool were a little hungover with having won the league after like 30 years. So it was down to that. And at the same time, it was down to how we capitalized on their mistakes as well. And we played like brilliant pressing football. If you look at like both the goals, it was, I think, Lacazette and Reece Nelson. It was a result of absolute pressing of the so-called best defenders in the world. You have Van Dijk there, you have Robertson, everybody. We we went at it and we capitalized on the two mistakes that they made, and it was a really good bounce back. But at the same time, I can also say it could be attributed to how Liverpool were still a little sort of hazy and not really into the game. But I would give Arteta and Arsenal the credit where it's due, because I think that was the start of really good things to come for us, and nobody really expected us to do the things that we did in the matter of that 1 week. So it is evident from that game that Reece Nelson does have quality. He should have the same, he probably does have the same ceiling to look at like Martinelli and Bukayo Saka. But it's just that he needs to sort of bulk up in terms of physicality, because where he is a little, behind is with regard to how he cannot sort of sustain the physicality of the league. He needs another loan maybe at a different or a top club. And at the same time, he needs, a lot of help with the gym probably to bulk himself up for the Premier League, because he's a really good talent and it's evident with the kind of stuff that he did in that game.
Okay, so Vigneshwar, I want to ask you about the next game which we played, which was the FA Cup semi-final, and we won against Manchester City. And in the space of a week, we beat both Liverpool and Man City, which were like the two best teams in England.
Look, I mean, like Rahul had mentioned, for Arteta's tactics to work, we had to invite press and we had to use our pace and skill up front. And evidently we do not have that creative midfielder to, break through the pressing lines. We need to run and score. And this was a problem that Ole had faced when he was
exactly.
before Bruno Fernandes came in. So they used to run on counters and they used to beat Liverpool and, they even beat Manchester City a couple of times. But, and then they would not be able to break down a club like Brighton or, Burnley. So that problem was evident there. And I'm glad City happened because, for a couple of things. One, because there was talk about Aubameyang not being a big game player.
Yeah,
Exactly.
The Lacazette, of course, he used to turn up in big games. But Aubameyang was not being called a big game player. And wow, that ball by Tierney and the second goal there was something else. And even the initial first half on the right wing, we always looked dangerous. I saw Aubameyang miss a clear one-on-one, and I thought, okay, I mean, this is probably not going to be our day, and this is going to come back and haunt us. But we didn't give up. Pepe on the right-hand side was running riot, and even for the second goal, Pepe was on the other side, and he won the ball for Tierney.
Yes.
So that was very good, and I think a lot of credit to David Luiz. Credit where it's due to David Luiz, and he was a rock. I think we are not bad when it comes to back to the wall defending. If you're maintaining a line and we're trying to stop people, that's probably a weakness for us. But back to the wall defending, I think it's about organization more than skill and pace, and that's where I think David Luiz's experience comes in. And yeah,
and I mean, one thing from the City game is about how phenomenal a player Kieran Tierney is. I mean, hands down, that kid is got something about him, and he's brought the winning culture from Celtic into Arsenal, and he's clearly a winner. And if you look at, he has adjusted into the system with no hindrance at all. I mean, he had like two setbacks. One with his hernia operation, which prevented him from starting for about 4 games. Then he had the shoulder injury, but since then, he's not been afraid to express himself like Bellerin has, because I think Bellerin is talented, but he's sort of holding himself back because he doesn't want another hamstring to sort of, get into another injury. But Kieran Tierney is a very disciplined and a very hardworking player, and brave as that. And you could see that in both the games, that in all the games that he's played, he's not very afraid to express himself. And he's a very disciplined player as that, which I think Mikel Arteta really appreciates, because I've heard a comment from him that, even though he's lived in London for about a year, he's not really roamed about much. He just goes to his training, packs his Tesco bag and comes back. And that's something which we need in the club, because nowadays football is all about your Snapchat. But this kid's clearly got some discipline into him, which I felt we as Arsenal have lacked since the Invincibles era. So, yeah.
So yeah, after this, our Premier League campaign came to an end and Arsenal finished 8th. And I felt that was the position we deserved actually. The way we performed throughout the season, we didn't actually deserve to finish any like 7th or 6th. And I was like okay with where we finished, but I thought we have FA Cup and we had to win it. So moving on to the next game, which was the Arsenal versus Chelsea FA Cup finals. Champion.
Yes, of course.
So, what do you guys think about it? I'll start with Rahul. Everyone has to talk about this game.
Of course.
That particular game, moving aside from the fact that we won, it was the comeback and the fight we showed against a team like Chelsea. Because normally, with the way Arsenal play under, Arsene Wenger or Unai Emery towards the end, if we concede first, then that was considered to be the end of the game, because in no way Arsenal used to show fight or commitment in terms of coming back and winning games. But that's the only important thing that Arteta has achieved. He has made sure that even though it was an off day or a good day, even though if we win, even though if we score goals or concede goals, the fight and the commitment is always there. And that's what he also made sure that he made it public against after the game against Liverpool. He obviously stated that even though in terms of how we play and how we win games, the gap is enormous. But when it comes to fight, commitment, and attitude, I think they are both the clubs are considered to be the same. So the way in which we considered the first goal, of course, it was an amazing goal by Chelsea. Pulisic ran through our defense, if I'm not wrong. But after that, the way in which we played, we completely dominated Chelsea. Chelsea fans, obviously they state that Kovacic's second yellow card was the turning point of the game. But even though Kovacic played for around 75 minutes before that, still Chelsea couldn't do anything. But we can refrain from commenting on how Chelsea played, but with the way in which we played, we were completely fantastic, and we totally deserved the win.
According to me, this game was a game where literally all other fans wanted Arsenal to lose, and including my brother actually, because my brother is a Man U fan who was like the whole week saying, "You are going to lose. I'm going to support Chelsea. I don't care if Chelsea wins. You're going to lose," and all that. But still, we came out like actually, I feel that whenever Arsenal is an underdog, they perform quite well. Be it against Liverpool or Man City, and now against Chelsea in the finals. Yeah, like Rahul told, the first goal which he considered was like I felt maybe it's gone. Like within 5 minutes, they just ran through our defense. It's going to be a riot or something. And but then we came back into the game, and again, Aubameyang proved he's a big game player. Like the ball again, Tierney, which he gave the long ball, and which I felt that Aspilicueta should have been sent off in that foul, which was
Exactly.
I felt even if Kovacic shouldn't have been sent off in the second foul, but they were saved in the first thing against Aspilicueta where he should have been sent off. But if you like, I felt like the Kovacic mistake was ultimately taken as an excuse for Chelsea fans to just say that because of that foul they lost. But they don't want to accept the fact that they didn't actually quite play very well. But Lampard to be he accepted saying that they were not playing quite well like they should in the finals. So yeah, I felt like we completely deserved to win this game, and it was a very important victory for Arsenal, which could ultimately make Aubameyang sign his new contract. Hopefully, he signs his new
Yes.
contract soon. So yeah, Sowmiya, what do you think about this game?
See, basically, FA Cup is something which I cherish, and like for the last four finals, I've always watched it with fellow Arsenal fans. So this time, watching it alone was a bit different. But then, right before the match started, I was really confident because, irrespective of what our domestic form was, we had just like won against Manchester City, and the match before that was really difficult. Like beating Sheffield United at Bramall Lane wasn't a thing which most of the teams did. Like basically Chelsea and Tottenham had gone there and lost. So basically that was a good sign to come. But after the Manchester City victory, I was pretty confident that we would be winning the final. And like to put things into perspective, we had a lot of luck as well. Like two key
Yeah.
injuries had considerably like made the match easier for us. So I would have been really gutted if we had gone to lose on from there. But then, like that being about Aubameyang, had something to prove. We had to win a trophy, and this was his best chance of winning a first trophy in England. And this should, in fact, like make sure he was playing in Europe, which is a very essential thing for a striker who is world class. So basically, we had a lot of things at stake when it came to the finals, and I was pretty confident considering how Arsenal go about their FA Cup. Like we get knocked out at the initial stages, and in case we advance deeper into the knockout stages, there is no going on at all. So basically, I think this was a really good game, and I hope this brings in a lot of like good things for the team and the manager in the upcoming season.
Okay, so finally moving on to the player ratings for our season. Let me go for a quick player rating. I'll start with Bern Leno, who was our first keeper. So let me start with Rahul. How much do you rate him out of 10?
He was the best player after Aubameyang, so obviously I'll give him an 8.
Okay, Rajat.
Would give him a 9 because as important as Aubameyang was to preventing us from relegation, I think the saves that Bernd Leno did with regard to how many shots we placed per game was very integral to the fact that we didn't finish in the bottom half of the table. So I think Bernd Leno is a solid 9 for me.
Even I would give him a 9 because he played a quite important role before he got injured, and he was the second Arsenal Player of the Season. Also, I think he was nominated to second
Yes.
Arsenal,
Oh.
so he was quite important for us this season. Moving on to our second keeper also because he also played a very important role for us this season. So Soumya, how much do you rate Martinez?
I would rate Martinez 8.5 out of 10. And like to put something into the table, in case if you guys remember the match against Leeds, I think he was one of the important reasons we crossed them. Like next season, I know how imminent threat Leeds would be to the Premier League teams. And I think we mainly advanced in case if we remember, he made 2 or 3 crucial and really great saves against Leeds United. So I think Martinez, and after his resurgence, we don't have to think about anything. I would give him 8.5.
Okay, so moving on to the right back, Bellerin, Vigneshwar, what do you think? How was his season?
6.5. I think, of course, I have to give him the leeway for him being injured and him being worried about not, having a setback in his injury. But I think the entire right side for most of a season was redundant. We weren't creating much from that side, and even defensively also. But Bellerin didn't play a lot of games. I think you'll have to keep it with Bellerin, Maitland-Niles, and I think I'd give Maitland-Niles maybe 7, but Bellerin a 6.5.
Okay, moving on to the defense, Mustafi. Rajat, what do you think about Mustafi?
Well, it was two sides of the coin, to be very honest, because I think he was bantered self under Emery, but at the same time, he was a completely different player under Arteta. So if I have to factor all of that, I would say I would give him like a 6.5 because I think he was integral to our run into the FA Cup final and where we finished in the league towards the end. So I think a solid 6.5 would do because I can't really take away his bad form initially under Emery, even though it was a poor system that he played under.
Okay, moving on to the next player, David Luiz. Rahul, what do you think about David Luiz' performance?
Yes, again, the David Luiz has two sides of the coin when it comes to him performing. Very, very inconsistent, but since we won the game against Manchester City and Chelsea to win the FA Cup, I'll give him a 6, or else it would have been a 4 or a 3. Only the reason I'm giving a 6 is only because of his performances against City and Chelsea.
Okay, the third centre back who apparently is not a centre back but still played as a centre back, Kolasinac. Soumya, what do you think about his performance?
See, like when he came, we thought he was destined for a lot of bigger things. But then, like later on, his form has deteriorated. I think he is a bit and pieces of player who I think should find his way out in the near future. And I think I'll give him a 4.5 to 5.
Okay, moving on to the next player, who according to me was the most important revival he had after the pandemic, which was Kieran Tierney. So Vigneshwar, what do you think about Kieran Tierney's performance this season?
Look, performance-wise, he has to be there with the 8 and 9s, but he did miss most of the season. And so, we cannot rate him as much as, we would give Aubameyang or Leno or Martinez. So, 7.5, because he did sorten in a back three also when Arteta requested him, Arteta wanted him, and he was solid with the assists and the semis and finals for the penalties. So, 7.5 would,
Okay.
Kieran Tierney.
Next is also an important player for Arsenal, Granit Xhaka. Rajat, what do you think about Granit Xhaka's performance?
It was again a resurgence. I've always rated him as a player, even though he's had his shortcomings in the previous systems, because he is a really good player, no matter what people might say. It's just that initially he didn't click with Arsenal, and you could see that towards the end of Emery's era as well. And most of us thought he was gone. But for somebody like that, the way it was with him in the Crystal Palace game, to come back like that to win back the affections of millions of fans all around the globe. I think that requires a stupendous effort, not only from the manager, but from the player himself. So, opposite to contrary opinion, and the fact that he's integral to Mikel Arteta's system, I'd give him an 8. I mean, it's just a personal opinion, but I think he's integral to the way Arteta plays, so he's an 8 for me.
Okay, next is a loan signing, which is Ceballos. Rahul, what do you think about Ceballos? And according to
Ceballos,
me, he was the best loan signing Arsenal had ever made in the history.
Exactly.
Yeah.
yeah, with respect to how Ceballos played, a difference can be identified before the lockdown started and after the lockdown ended. Because before the lockdown, Ceballos wasn't considered to be one of the good players in our squad because he was finding it very, very difficult to fit into the system. And before the lockdown, Mesut Ozil was considered to be our main creative input. But after the restart, I think Ceballos redeemed himself the best possible way possible, and I'll give him a 7.
Okay. Moving on to our front three, I'll start with Nicola Pepe. Sowmiya, what do you think about Nicolas Pepe's first season?
See, basically, knowing Nicola Pepe, we all know that he's a baller, like no doubt about it. But like, despite of heavy criticism which he has received, which is obviously due to the insane amount for which he was signed, which is still being debated, I think Nicola Pepe is here to stay. Like, basically, looking at all the matches he's won, he doesn't need the rest of the team to help him out. He's an individual match winner without any doubt. But I think like giving him a deeper run over the next 1 or 2 seasons, we'll know the maximum potential he has to offer to the team. And despite of a team like Arsenal, it is a welcome addition to have Nicolas Pepe. Like basically, he can dribble around people, he can create chances, and close to 18 to 19 goal contributions in a physical league like the English Premier League is a really good thing to happen. I think the only thing which people don't think is the price which might affect him. Otherwise, I think we should be giving him a 7.5 to 8 definitely. Nicola Pepe, I think, is one of the best players for the club as far as this season is concerned.
Yeah,
But he has a
even
lot to improve, of course. Like basically, he has got to a lot of dead ends in a lot of matches. Basically, despite of being a proven dribbler, he is not able to capitalize. I think he has to work on it right now, and he might become a better player than he is now.
yeah, definitely. I will also give him about 7.5 to 8 because we have seen short glimpses of what he can offer to us, but he's yet there to give his full potential to us. And also, we should keep in account that he has played in one season against like under 3 managers, which is not easy to
Exactly.
accommodate. Which is not easy because it is his first season and he's playing like under 3 managers. It is like difficult for him to settle down as well. For what, like definitely the amount is debatable, but I feel he'll get there soon once he settles down and once we get our creative midfielder and we can offer him more upfront. Definitely he'll be able to offer us more. So moving on to the next
Yeah.
player, Vigneshwar, what do you think about Lacazette's performance this season?
Look, I have to say he is adjusted to what Mikel Arteta wanted out of him. I mean, Aubameyang technically is more gifted, but he couldn't do what Lacazette does for Mikel Arteta. That is, do the dirty work in the midfield, drop down, play that not an ideal target man, but also be. I'd give Lacazette a 7, a good 7, because look, he is a system player. He's important to Arteta's system, like Xhaka or Saka also is. So I'd give him a 7.
Okay, moving on to the best player of Arsenal this season, Aubameyang. Rajat, what do you think about his
10.
performance?
10, indefinitely. I mean, there's no two ways about it. He saved us from being relegated. He's single-handedly, I mean, with all due respect to the other players, he's won us a trophy in our worst season, I think, in 20 years. And at the same time, I would also consider the fact that there is a willingness to stay even though we finished 8th. And he genuinely loves the club. He loves the fans. And with everything that's happened, I have absolute and complete respect for this man. And if things go the way it does, I think he could just finish as an Arsenal legend if he signs, as things are being said.
Okay, according to the reports which came out yesterday about Rahul being sacked from Arsenal. So, Soumya, what are your thoughts on this?
See, basically, as far as I'm concerned, I've always been a Wenger type guy. But then I realized that things are changing and we need massive agents influence in the modern transfer window. Like, see, but at the same time, I think all the astronomical fees which is being paid in the modern days is due to the agent influence, and I think that is a welcome move when Raul has to leave. So even like looking at the past 3 to 4 transfers, as far as I would agree with the transfer of Billion and David Luiz being real match winners and legends in their own right. I think the two transfers with regards to Pablo Mari and Cedric, which is like even though which is being said as Arteta transfers, have been like raising huge questions to me. So I think when there is absolute control with regards to Arteta, and after seeing Arteta, we know he's a guy who knows what he's doing. I think this will lead to a few hiccups with regards to pursuing players. But in case we go back and revert to the longer and the conservative aspect, I think this might bring in more good than harm. Like we do not know the truer picture yet, but then like we'll have to look into 2 to 3 transfer windows to see what we have gained and what we have lost in the practically longer run. So that is what I would comment with regards to the whatever restructuring which is being claimed.
Rahul, what was your reaction to this?
I thought there were a number of internal issues in the club with respect to how Nicolas Pepe's transfer was being dealt financially, as a matter of fact. So we don't know the complete picture, we don't know the complete story, but as far as I'm concerned, I consider it to be a huge dent in how the way we deal with transfers, because this one such an important time for us to buy new players, and if our head of football gets sacked in the middle of this time, I genuinely expect us to have a very bad transfer window. But I don't think that will be a case, because now Arteta's role is considered to be more serious and more important, because after our head of football gets sacked, he has more of a say in terms of how we are supposed to deal in the transfer
Transfers.
window. So yeah, I don't know if we are supposed to be excited again, but let's see how the transfer window goes.
So yeah, Vigneshwar, I would like to ask you a different question. Since Arteta and Edu are like have the control over the transfers right now, do you think it's good that Arteta has more say on what players he wants rather than the board taking decisions on the signings?
At the end of the day, yes, I think the manager has to have the final say and the final tick off on players, and that's what we had through Arsene Wenger through the years. You look at all great managers. Pep has the final say. Alex Ferguson had the final say. So if you want to play, you'll have to go and get him. You cannot give a manager a set of players and say pick from these. That's what happened with the agent model that we were functioning. We had Kia and so these are the players that we can possibly get. Maybe we can snap up, say, Pepe from Lille, but this is what you have to pick from these. So that's not how it works. So I'm actually glad that Arteta has the final tick off now. I'm hoping if it is true, but I'm also seeing reports that we're going for another head of football. We're going for Ralph Ragnick, and or there's even rumors of Bergkamp coming back and all those things. So I mean, uh, you never know, but I want the final say of the team has to go with the manager. I mean, it's not baseball. In baseball, if you follow baseball, you'll know that the general manager has a lot more say with what the team construct should be. But football is not like that, and we're moving towards that, but we shouldn't. Ideally, the coach, the player, the manager should have the final say in the bunch that he has to coach. So yeah.
Like Vigneshwar told, that was my next question to you, Rajat. Who do you think should be replaced for Rahul?
Frankly speaking, I don't think we do need a replacement because, in my opinion, the sacking with Raul was not just about how he ran things with Arsenal, that was sort of a conflict of interest, but it's also about how there was a sense of overlapping with duties. I think we will see a far more of bigger role for Edu in terms of everything that he will be doing with the club. Not only will he be handling the internal matters as a technical director, I think he'll also be responsible for the recruitments of big players that would be coming into Arsenal Football Club. So I wouldn't want personally another replacement, because for me, ideally, I would like to see a partnership like the likes of David Dean and Arsene Wenger did have back in the days. I mean, the day David Dean decided to quit from Arsenal Football Club, that is when we stopped becoming the big club, or at least acting like the big club that we were. Because you saw David Dean constantly being in touch with the biggest players and bringing the best players to Arsenal, and there was a no-nonsense policy about how we would sort of settle for a tier 2 player. And I think that is what Edu and Arteta would sort of bring in. At least if it's not of the same magnitude of, say, Wenger and David Dean, I think I would like to see a balance of both. As Vigneshwar said, the manager has to have a say, because towards the end of the Wenger era, we saw like there was a completely different paradigm. Earlier, it was only Wenger who was in charge of who would sign and who he wouldn't. Then we ended up getting a head of football, and only he was responsible for sort of bringing into the players. Now, I think it's going to be a healthy mix of both. And I think we need a culmination of both these things to go forward as a football club. Because even though, Edu might not be as, there's a perception that Edu is not just as connected to agents as sort of Rahul is. But I still see big things coming our way, because Edu still was I think he had a role with the Brazilian team with regard to technical recruitment and whatnot. So I think we will see a lot of Brazilian players coming into the team from now. I see big things with Edu. So to answer your question, Pranay, I don't think we need a replacement. And if there is a replacement, then I would like somebody from the old guard, like he mentioned Dennis Bergkamp, or there were even rumors of David O'Leary coming back as...
Yeah, he was vetoed actually by Raul Saleni.
He was vetoed by Rahul Sinelli. So I think that was there. But I think that will be on a more of a corporate hierarchy of a level. I don't think it will be with regard to recruitment. It will be more on the upper level of the management of Arsenal Football Club.
Okay, I think we can move on to the potential signings that Arsenal need to sign this season. Because this signings for this season is very important to bridge the gap which is there between us and the top teams out there. So, yeah, Sowmiya, what do you think Arsenal should go get there, including that we have already got Willian?
See, being really honest, Willian is a proven match winner in the Premier League, and I think he doesn't need the time to settle down. So I think I'll rate it to be a really good transfer considering the financial situation we are in. But at the same time, I'm really skeptical of our transfer targets due to the unfortunate fact of them playing really well during the Champions League. So, we basically thought we'll get a few good players because they weren't really performing up to potential. But then look at our main targets and how they're performing in the last 1 week. So that gives me a sense of insecurity with regards to landing our preferred targets. But then I think basically in case we manage to push further, we might just get party out and the AFCON being postponed is also a really good thing in case we manage to get him for a full first season. And that being said, maybe we can get Gabriel, which remains an idealistic target. And I've always felt that Arsenal have not been a club who tries to stoop down to teams which have been relegated and pick out their good talent. So I think that is something we should focus now because the post-COVID pandemic situation doesn't give us a lot of funds, and I think we need to make a lot of smart investments.
Okay,
so I think we'll get to know a good picture after the Community Shield and after the first season, since the transfer window is being extended. I think we'll have a good idea about what things are happening post September.
Okay, so Rahul, how many signings do you think Arsenal needs to make, and who they should sign now to make the difference?
Answer your question, I always thought that 4 signings were more than enough for us to compete for the top 4 in terms of how 4 positions are mainly concerned. One is a very good centre back, obviously. Another one is a very good attacking midfielder who is very, very creative as far as we are concerned, because we lack the defensive capabilities of being a top team, and we also lack the creative input in order to score more goals. So that's 2 positions that I've always thought of. Another position which which is ultimately concerning for us is the defensive midfielder. And I'm very, very glad that we are, I don't know, we are close to signing Thomas Partey from Atletico Madrid. If we manage to get him, then I think it will be a very, very good signing because he is a proven player. He has played well in both La Liga and the Champions League. And the the matter with the Thomas Partey is that he can contribute more to defense and in some cases to attack also. So we need that type of a player. And I always thought that we need a striker in case Alexander Lacazette leaves. But since Willian has come in, I think Aubameyang would be shifted to play as a striker and Willian as either a left winger or a midfielder. So yeah, I always thought that these signings were genuinely very, very important for us to compete. But yeah, we can only hope.
Okay, so Vigneshwar, I would like to ask you, like, what signing you personally want Arsenal to try, but they aren't right now, but you feel that they should be trying and like somehow get him into Arsenal.
I think Awar, especially after I saw him yesterday, he was a different level, and yeah, I mean, I heard that Edu was trying to sign him now. Now there are reports of, but I think he's beyond the budget. I think we can only hope for. You cannot have Gabriel, Partey, and Hawar. I really don't see it happening with the budget that we have. But look, I think it all comes down to how you're treating Willian. I mean, if you're going to play Willian as your starting, is part of your starting plans, then I don't think we're ambitious enough. Willian should be your backup for multiple positions, but he's not the first choice. So we should be going in for a proper AM. I don't know how far Coutinho is working out, but I think Coutinho is required. We need a Coutinho there. I think Gabriel is pretty much wrapped up from what I reckon. So Gabriel is there, and I think we need Partey as well. I recall Mikel Arteta mentioning that Ceballos will offer more to Arsenal if he's playing a little bit ahead of what he is now. But he's actually holding Ceballos back to play in the pivot, and so I think if Partey comes in, then maybe we'll see the Burnley Ceballos more often. So I mean, I don't expect drastic changes, next season. Maybe we didn't even touch 60 points this season. Maybe we should aim 70. I mean, I don't think we are in the 80, 85 and challenging for the title zone yet, but we should be consolidating. We're going to start with 20-year-old centre backs, Saliba, and if Gabriel comes in, Gabriel. So they will be making mistakes, and we have to be realistic and we should be prudent. And maybe, like Sowmiya mentioned, we have to try to bag one of Max Aaron's or, one of those relegated folks who will be a valuable addition and who, have that higher ceiling. Someone like a Todd Cantwell, maybe. You never know what Todd Cantwell can become, and he's not very expensive. You might be able to bag him for 20 to 30 million also. So we should be looking at those options. So yeah, let us see.
Okay, so Rajat, what I would like to ask you is there are already news saying that Lacazette is going to leave, and Guendouzi is about to leave, and Torreira is about to leave, and there are some swap deals going on. So who do you think should ideally replace them?
Yes. For example, for me, just to add on to what you said, along with the incomings, I think the outgoings are just as important for us to progress forward as a club. So we've already heard like decent to very good talents like Guendouzi, Torreira, and Lacazette being on their way out. We don't know how sure that is. Guendouzi is definitely on the way out, and I think mostly Torreira, but we'll have to take a look at that. But at the same time, we need to look at outgoings in the defensive area. I would definitely want Kolasinac to be on the way out from Arsenal, and at the same time, Socrates, who doesn't even seem to be having a lot of role under Mikel Arteta, and a couple of other outgoings as well. So that should be enough for us to sort of consolidate a sum to be a part of our transfer kitty to go out for the big players. So to answer your question, if Lacazette is on his way out, then if I wouldn't want to go for a second striker, because that's what there has been a problem with. We have two good strikers in the form of Aubameyang and Lacazette who essentially play in the same position, because of which Aubameyang has been shifted to the left, and there's always been a lost opportunity there. So I think if Lacazette is on the way out, then we should sort of swap him in or invest that money on on a position that we are weak in, like an attacking midfielder position, or say a center back position where we are essentially very very weak with. So if Lacazette is going out, I would consider Nketiah is good enough as a second striker, because we've seen what the kid can do. But at the same time, he's still not good enough to be in the part of the first 11, because you can see that there are misses and whatnot. And what is the other thing? Torreira, right? So if Torreira is on the way out, then hands down, it has to be Thomas Partey. There's no two ways about it, because Torreira clearly has not worked well in the Premier League despite how talented he is, which gives us the valuation that he has to sort of bring in a very good player. And it has to be Thomas Partey that replaces it, because more often than not, we don't end up signing players in their prime. We've always looked at signing either very young players or very old players. For the first time, we'll be actually going for a player that's 27 years old. That's like the prime a football player can be in, and he's at the top of his game. His fitness levels are good, hopefully, until he sort of joins us and nothing bad should happen. But at the same time, Thomas Partey is somebody that we should be looking at for the DM position, because I think since the Invincibles era, the one player that we have not replaced, and that is what has cost us, is Patrick Vieira. Patrick Vieira has been one player that we have not replaced for 15 years, and that is what has cost us dearly. So we need somebody. I'm not drawing comparisons between both the players, but I think we need somebody who is a leader, who is a ball winner, who is a good distributor, and who can defend very well. And Thomas Partey is one of them. For Guendouzi, again, there is again an overflow of players in that position. So if Guendouzi is being out, then I would definitely want an inflow of attacking players. So Aura is one of them. Hasim Aura is one of them. Have you seen what he can do? Guendouzi has a decent enough valuation. So even if it is like Hasim Aura is valued at around 40 million, we can sell Guendouzi at easily around 35 to 40 million, which I'm sure he's worth that much, and just pay 10 million more and get an attacking midfielder, which we desperately need. And another position that I would want us to see strengthening, and this is contrary to many people's opinion, maybe the left back position, because see, Kieran Tierney is the established left back. It's pretty obvious that he's made his way there.
Left back.
We need a left back because Kolasinac is clearly not good enough, and Saka is a lost opportunity at the left wing back or the left back position. So we need a left back, but I don't see that happening with the budget that we have. I think we will probably accommodate Ainsley, Maitland-Niles, or Saka there if things go wrong with Tierney, God forbid. But yeah, that idea is happening.
Okay, so before ending the podcast, I would just like to ask everyone of you, like, where do you think Arsenal should finish next season? Like, hypothetically speaking, it's difficult to say like right now because we have not made any signings right now. But still, just hypothetically speaking, we signed like the players we need, which is one defense and one attacking midfielder and one up front to replace Lacazette. Where do you think we should finish for Arteta's first full season? So I'll just start with Sowmiya.
See, basically this might look too much, but then like if we look into things which are happening, most of our top four rivals will be playing Champions League. So I think United and Chelsea are our direct rivals, and I don't think Leicester and Sheffield United will give a tougher season than they did last year. So I think we have a really good chance of going on to the top three or the top four. And considering we only have Europa League to play, and like if we look into account how the next season will pan out, I think a lot of fixtures in a very congested time will happen. So in case we manage to stay injury free and the new signings make sure we take points from the teams which are in the lower off, I think we have a good chance to get Champions League in the 2021 season. But that being said, I feel the newer teams which have been promoted pose a greater threat to our chances than the teams which were there in the previous era. So I think Leeds United and West Brom have been playing really good football, and I think they might be challenging. But if things go well, I predict a top four finish after a long time. I hope things happen.
According to me, I don't think we'll be able to aim for the top, like get top four easily, but definitely we can compete for the season rather than competing for the top six last season. So I think we'll be competing for the top four, and I would be happy if we get the Europa League and somehow qualify for the Champions League. That is the one way I think we can get to the Champions League next season. So
But
I hope that.
Pranay, just not interrupting you, I think this season's Europa League might be tougher because, like, if you look into the leagues of other countries, a lot of top teams have finished outside Champions League football. Like, basically, to put things into perspective, a lot of good teams like Lyon or Lille have finished outside the top four. And similarly, if we look into Serie A, a lot of top teams have found form later in the season after the lockdown. AC Milan, Napoli, and all those teams, AS Roma. So I think this time around, it might be a tougher tournament than it was previously, which we indeed like bottled up. So I think Europa League might not be something which we should be optimistic about. So that is what I feel about it. I might be wrong, but then looking at the forms of other teams, I think it might be a bit difficult tournament this time.
Okay, so Rahul, where do you think Arsenal should finish next season?
A lot of assumptions can be done, but provided that if we were able to um, match up our objectives and sign the players that Mikel Arteta wants, then I think we can finish fourth in the Premier League. I'm not saying that we can compete. We will not compete. That's the harsh, brutal truth. But we can finish fourth. And I want us to win the Europa League. But yeah, let's see. But there are so many chances. And it is a positive sign that we can get Champions League football next season.
Okay, what are your thoughts, Vigneshwar?
No, I think we should be looking at it from a points perspective. I mean, look, if you're not challenging for the title, or we ended up with 56 points. That's absolute shambles for a club like Arsenal. So we should be targeting 70, 75 next season. That's like the bare minimum a club like Arsenal should be getting. You're seeing Liverpool touching 99, City touching 100, and you're getting 56. That's shambles. So you win half your games, and you manage not losing the other half. You inadvertently end up with 70, 75 points, and that's the bare minimum that is expected. So that's probably the first step. And then I think we'll be following the Liverpool model. We see where we go, and then we try to plug in the holes that are there. And you're now looking at if after the next season you see where we're falling short, and Liverpool fell short on, say, Van Dijk, a good centre back and a goalkeeper, and they fixed it there. So we have to see where we fall short at the end of next season, and maybe then potentially challenge over the following season. So in next season, we have to consolidate and try to get ourselves to a respectable 70, 75 points. And that I think should lead us to top four, so yeah.
Okay, Rajat?
For me, I would like to agree with Vigneshwar. I think it should be a consistent improvement in the number of points we have. It should be all about bridging the gaps that we see currently in our squad and the points that we have. And we should consistently look at bridging that deficit that we have with Liverpool. I think it's 33 points right now as we stand. So we should look at bridging that gap first. And ideally, for me, we should be aiming for top four. That is what I would want. I would want Champions League football because, as I would want to say, it's been a pain to watch Arsenal in the Europa League, man, because we've gone from witnessing 16 years of consistent Champions League football and to Europa League, which is not really good. No disrespect to the Europa League, which I'll speak about later, but ideally we should target finishing in the top four. But we need the signings that we are ideally looking for in the form of a DM, an attacking midfielder, and a centre back. On the other end of things, I would really want us to do well in the Europa League. I'm not saying we can indefinitely go out and win there, but I want to see us win that trophy as well, because it is another way to get into the Champions League. Of course, we get into a better pot, which gives us a easier draws probably if we qualify for the Champions League, so we can further progress there. And at the same time, I think before Arsenal can sort of look at staying in the Champions League, and subsequently the goal should be trying to progress further in that competition, we should develop the habit of winning trophies and European trophies at that. So to start off with, we must start off by learning to sort of do better in European competitions. Winning the Europa League would be a very good way to do it. And that would give us access to, playing tournaments like the UEFA Super Cup, which we've never really played, which is really sad.
Oh.
So, we need to start consistently doing better in European football. And Europa League is a good way to start. So hopefully next year should be the last time in a very long time that we play the Europa League, we end up winning it, or we qualify for the top four. So that is my expectation from Arteta. And I genuinely think unless things go terribly wrong, that he has the potential to do it. And for that, he needs the support of not just the players, which he clearly has, but us as fans as well. Because I believe Arsenal have a very reactionary fan base when it comes to matches. One match they call Arteta like the world-class manager, and the next thing you know, if there is a loss, you have people sort of asking him for the axe and calling him inexperienced and whatnot. So he needs the support that sort of Liverpool fans gave Klopp. It was a 4-year system, and now they are sort of the best team in Europe right now. So we need to give Arteta the same time for him to achieve the things that we expect him to achieve.
So yeah, guys, we're coming to the end of the podcast. So I thank Vigneshwar, Rajat, Sowmiya, and Rahul for coming here today. It was an amazing chat. Thank you so much, and hopefully you guys will be back here for another interesting topic. So yeah, thank you guys. Please do like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.
Sure, done, guys.